Koti is this month. July 1st, 1863, slavery was abolished in the Dutch colonies, but it took another 10 years for the enslaved to actually be free, hence the 1873 button. Last week I went to Amsterdam to participate in the Black Heritage Tour.
So I went about saying I'm going to prove that there not only is there a Black history in the Netherlands, but it's still visible in the metropole.
If you're going to Amsterdam, make sure you visit the Black Heritage Tour. It's an amazing tour developed by Jennifer Tosh.
Over 115 what we'll call sites of memory that are connected to this colonial past.
And it takes you along the streets and canals of Amsterdam, and it shows you visible traces of slavery. And it's really mind-blowing to see that there are so many traces that we don't even think about, but they really are still there. It's a very concrete, evidence of the participation of the Netherlands in this slavery history. So one argument that often comes up when we commemorate the abolition of slavery is that we still have modern slavery today. And I think it's really important to be aware of the diversion tactics to not discuss transatlantic slavery, because it's a completely different thing. And by aligning the two, transatlantic slavery and modern slavery, it seems like it's the same thing, and therefore, we have to focus on battling present day so-called slavery and kind of, forget about what happened in the past and not deal with the repercussions and legacies of the past. So there are three main differences between transatlantic slavery and so-called modern slavery. One is that transatlantic slavery was done by the state, by governments. So the Dutch state kidnapped and exploited and oppressed people of color for their benefit, for gaining wealth. And when we talk about modern slavery, which is basically human trafficking, it's done by individuals. It's not done by the state. Second is, transatlantic slavery was legal. It was actually a legal system to traffic people of color because they were considered inferior. Modern day slavery is illegal. It's against the law to kidnap people. So it's very important to remember that, colonizing land, stealing their resources was actually considered legal because it was considered as an act of civilization, modernization. Third is that transatlantic slavery was based on a racial hierarchy. Because people of color were considered inferior, it was legitimized or considered okay to actually exploit them and oppress them. And in so-called modern day slavery, it's not based on this racial hierarchy. So you see, they're two completely different things, but by naming both slavery, or by naming human trafficking slavery, it almost aligns the two and then blurs the line between what happened in the past and what happens in the present. So if you get a chance to go to Amsterdam, make sure to check out the Black Heritage Tour. Jennifer Tosh and her colleagues have actually just published a second edition of her book and guide, and I have my copy. Can you see it? This is actually the first copy, but she has a second edition, and she has marked all these different locations that show traces of slavery. So this is food for thought. Thanks again for watching, and see you next episode.